Hey guys, welcome back. This is Kneon. We're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars. We're going to talk about the decline of Star Wars. We're going to talk about the Rise of Skywalker, take another look at just how badly this franchise has done, and all of the excuses that are being made, all of the excuses that are being made for Star Wars, none of them have anything to do with The Last Jedi. For some reason, nobody will mention that The Last Jedi was the reason that the Star Wars brand took a massive, massive hit. They won't. They blame literally everything else. You'll see in some of these articles, they're blaming everything else but The Last Jedi for the decline of Star Wars, which they're now admitting. And before we get into the video, I want to remind you guys that Geeky and I are going to be walking around Walt Disney World for a couple days next week. We're going down to Florida, and we've got some pre-recorded content for you if you want to follow the live streams. We will do some live streaming on CLOWNFISH TV, but most of the live streaming is actually going to be on Geeky's Pirates and Princesses Facebook page, which I'll put a link in the description. You can follow that. We'll be walking around and taking a look at Galaxy's Edge, and we're going to try to get on Rise of the Resistance. We'll let you know what we think, if the thing works. It'd be so funny if we got on and it broke down, wouldn't it? Because everybody says it never breaks down. It never breaks down. It always works. But we're going to be there next week, get out of the cold a little bit, and hopefully you guys will be there. So here we go. We're going to talk about the Rise of Skywalker again. I just wanted to do a quick update, I guess, on the situation with the box office, just again to show, how it's not that good. It really wasn't that good, where it ranks in relation to the other Star Wars movies in terms of, being adjusted for inflation, where the toy sales are, what we can expect at the earnings call next week. Disney's going to have their first quarter earnings report, earnings call on, I think it's Tuesday of next week. So, we've been talking about the decline of Star Wars a lot on this channel because it's sad. I mean, it's really, really sad. Star Wars is, one of those franchises that I didn't think could be killed. I didn't think it could be killed. You look at the prequels, and the prequels absolutely did turn some people off. But even during the prequels, we've said before, the toy sales were still pretty decent. People weren't, giving Star Wars the finger. They came back for Revenge of the Sith when they were promised, some member berries with Darth Vader and stuff like that. And the sequel trilogy has done a hell of a lot of damage. And the only bright spot so far, in the last couple of years with Star Wars has been The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, and that's over now. And they are milking the hell out of Baby Yoda. I gotta tell you, that is the new green milk. Baby Yoda is the new green milk, and they better hope the next season delivers. But Rise of Skywalker, pretty dire. I mean, Forbes is writing articles every day just throwing more shade at this movie, but part of the reason they're doing that, I do believe, is because they personally like The Last Jedi much better, did not like that they backpedaled a lot of those decisions in The Rise of Skywalker, but numbers are numbers. This movie didn't perform, and I think, again, you can trace the crack in the fandom back to The Last Jedi and all the drama surrounding it. But let's just take a look at some of what's being said in the last couple days about the box office. Now, I did a video a couple of days ago talking about how bad it actually was, but this actually breaks it down even more. So look at this. Look at this. This is Scott Mendelson, former Star Wars apologist, I guess. The Rise of Skywalker will sell fewer tickets in North America than almost every previous Star Wars movie ever. Yet, Walt Disney's first 5 movies took advantage of a growing international marketplace. They did, except China. China hates Star Wars. They hate it. I mean, and everybody's like, oh my God, China, they've always hated Star Wars. No. After The Last Jedi, any interest in Star Wars just dropped off a cliff. So it just crawled across 500 million in North America. It just crawled across $1 billion. Again, previous video, we pointed out Frozen 2 made more money. I think Aladdin might have actually made more money too. But for a Star Wars movie, for the last Star Wars movie in the Skywalker saga, it's pretty much a fail. I mean, it really is. In terms of how Rise of Skywalker compares to the relative domestic performance of other 8 live-action theatrical Star Wars flicks, it's squarely in the middle. With a guesstimate, again, this is domestic performance unadjusted. When you adjust it, it looks really bad. With a guesstimated final gross of around $520 million, it has surpassed the Raw grosses of Star Wars, Empire, Jedi, and The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, etc. In terms of adjusted for inflation earnings, counting all relevant reissues, there are two notable disclaimer. They're trying to say that these disclaimers are that people don't go to the movies anymore, they watch more Netflix, etc. But this is interesting. Second, the Star Wars franchise was, even by the early 2000s, unique unto itself in terms of delivering massively scaled, larger-than-life sci-fi action spectacles. Now it's merely a god among gods. That's true. Star Wars was it back in the day. Star Wars was the franchise, you know, and we've seen so many other franchises come into that space, and frankly, they're doing it a hell of a lot better than Star Wars currently is. So here, when we adjust it for inflation, you see just how far the Rise of Skywalker has fallen. Rise of Skywalker's $520 million projected domestic finish puts it behind Star Wars. Again, these are adjusted. Puts it behind Star Wars, adjusted, Empire, Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi. It is only ahead of Attack of the Clones and Solo for live-action Star Wars movies. Yeah, they're not even counting the Clone Wars animated movie. I don't count it. I think it was basically a TV pilot that they released theatrically, but I've never counted the Clone Wars movie as an actual theatrical Star Wars movie. So we're talking like third from the bottom. And, you know, Solo was not a hit at all. I think Solo lost a lot of money, and I do think Rise of Skywalker is going to lose money. I really do. I think between the marketing expenses, which were crazy, the reshoots, and just the cost of the movie, I think they probably lost money. They talk about how they can't crack China to save their lives. They can't get Star Wars into China. And they said Rise of Skywalker is still a clear financial win, but merely an okay result for the proverbial phase one for Disney's Star Wars movies. Star Wars box office, Rise of Skywalker won't top Last Jedi. Again, Last Jedi actually made more money, because I think there was a lot of goodwill going into Last Jedi from The Force Awakens, and people were like, oh, hot damn, we get to see Luke Skywalker be a Jedi Master, and what the hell is this? What the hell is this? So now they're out defending The Last Jedi. But again, this has nothing to do with the movies themselves. We're talking raw numbers here. Clearly, you know, the public is done with Star Wars, or at least the sequel trilogy, right? They're done. They're checking out. Star Wars Rise of Skywalker set to fall well below The Last Jedi again. It made less than The Last Jedi. This is a no-brainer. Last Jedi destroyed a lot of goodwill. Why is it surprising people? Why is it surprising people? Now here, again, you know, we're talking toy sales. There were hardly any toys for The Rise of Skywalker. A big part of Star Wars since day one has been the merchandising. Right? As soon as Star Wars became a hit, you know, we had the Kenner toys coming out, and, you know, I think George Lucas probably made most of his money off of the toys. But toy sales have fallen off a cliff. You know, we saw Hasbro blamed, they had a really bad 2017, 2018. They blamed it on Star Wars. They hardly released any Star Wars toys this time around. There were a handful of figures released, some Black Series figures, a lot of retro stuff, and there's hardly any Star Wars on the shelves. You know, if this had been normal, if Disney had handled Star Wars correctly, there would be an entire Star Wars aisle. There would be entire Star Wars end caps, you know, full of stuff, just like there was back in the day, even during the lull, you know, when there were no movies out to support it. There was more Star Wars on the shelf than there is now. You know, when Clone Wars was out, there were half an aisle dedicated to Star Wars. And there's hardly anything on the shelf, but they're talking about on CNBC that in the past, Star Wars films have been a massive driver for toy sales. But that property fell flat during the holiday season, despite the release of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which also fell flat. Additionally, other holiday film releases didn't lend themselves strongly toward toy lines. Yeah, Star Wars was like the toy line. It's probably the longest lasting action figure line that's been consistently popular, or had been consistently popular, until Disney got a hold of it. Disney got a hold of it, and they not only managed to kill the movies, but they killed off the toys, the toy line. I didn't think it was possible. You know, I mean, just to show how much they've failed. It's insane. Screen Rant saying, well, because now everybody's like, well, why didn't they just make Colin Trevorrow's episode 9? It would have been better. Now Screen Rant's like, nah, could have been worse. Could have been worse. Actually, you know, from what I heard of it, I thought it would have been worse. I just think that in general, people checked out after The Last Jedi. Why is nobody blaming The Last Jedi for this? Nobody is blaming The Last Jedi. They're blaming Star Wars fatigue. They're blaming other franchises. They're blaming streaming services. Nobody will blame The Last Jedi for the damage, the irreparable damage done to the Star Wars franchise. You can trace everything back to it. Everything. You can trace the lack of goodwill. You can trace the toy sales. You can trace, you know, just a lack of give a shit in Star Wars back to The Last Jedi. Nobody will blame The Last Jedi. Why is The Last Jedi immune to criticism? People were hopeful in The Economist before the movie came out. They said, we'll rebalance Disney's Star Wars universe. Nope. Nope, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. You know, it didn't happen. So Disney does have this earnings call next week. I think Bob Iger is going to deflect a lot. He's going to point to the success of The Mandalorian and the success of the Rise of the Resistance ride when it opens as to why Star Wars is not dead, because people tried asking him during the last earnings call and he sidestepped it. Basically, they were like, well, what's up with Star Wars, Bob? And he's like, well, Disney Plus is coming. That's what's up with Star Wars. And now it'll be Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda. We're selling Baby Yoda merch. Did we mention we shut down some Etsy sellers to sell more Baby Yoda merch? Yeah, that's how we're going to make our money. That's what's going to save Star Wars is freaking Baby Yoda, you know? So there's going to be some sleight of hand. Do not expect anybody at Disney to come out during the earnings call and be like, yeah, guys, we fucked up. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So again, we're going to be down in Florida for a couple days next week. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Pirates and Princesses Facebook page. Geeky is going to be doing some streaming down there as we walk around the parks. We're going to check out Galaxy's Edge in Florida. Hopefully we're not going to get stuck on a Skyliner. Nothing's going to blow up when we're there. Hopefully they'll let us in. You know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I just want to do this update because it's very interesting that everybody is acknowledging now that Star Wars is dying, but they refuse to blame The Last Jedi. So we'll talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.